Gordon Strachan's public image took a serious hit when Sky Sports abruptly severed ties with him. The reason? A comment that many felt crossed a line, not just controversial, but deeply inappropriate. During a segment on The Debate, Strachan appeared to draw a comparison between the treatment of convicted sex offender Adam Johnson and the racial abuse faced by black footballers. It was a statement that sparked immediate outrage. Anti-racism campaigners condemned it. Former players voiced their disappointment. Social media lit up with criticism. And Sky Sports acted swiftly. Strachan would no longer appear on their platform. But for those who had followed his career, this moment felt like it had been a long time coming. His sharp tongue, sometimes humorous, often scathing, had always walked a fine line between honesty and offense. This time, it crossed into something far more serious. It wasn't just about one comment, it was about a pattern. A public figure whose way with words, once charming or cheeky, had begun to overshadow his legacy. And for the first time, the footballing world wasn't willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. If you're into powerful football stories like this, ones that go beyond the pitch, subscribe now and stick around. There's much more to this story. Long before the Sky Sports fallout, Gordon Strachan had already built a reputation, brilliant on the pitch, unpredictable behind the mic. His interviews were rarely dull. At times, they were refreshingly honest. Other times, they were cutting, even abrasive. What some viewed as dry wit, others saw as arrogance. Strachan didn't suffer fools, and he rarely sugarcoated his words. As a manager, he was no stranger to tension, whether with the media, players, or pundits. During his time with the Scottish national team, it wasn't just the results that sparked debate, it was the way he explained them. He often pointed to external factors, even genetics, rather than taking direct responsibility. For some, that was classic Strachan. Clever, sharp, maybe even misunderstood. But for others, it felt like avoidance. Too defensive, too dismissive. Still, his candor had a place in football. In an industry full of cliches, Strachan's raw honesty made him stand out. But as the sport evolved and became more sensitive to language and public image, Strachan's style began to feel outdated. His authenticity, once admired, was now putting him at odds with the world around him. That's the paradox of Gordon Strachan, a man whose greatest strength may have also been his biggest flaw. Before the controversy and managerial headlines, Gordon Strachan was simply a kid with a dream and a relentless drive. At just 14, he turned down Manchester United, choosing instead to stay in Scotland with Dundee, where first-team football felt more attainable. The gamble paid off. Strachan quickly stood out, twice named Scottish Reserve Player of the Year and drawing comparisons to Billy Bremner. By 18, he was making waves. By 19, he was Dundee's youngest ever captain. But leadership came with pressure and missteps. He later admitted he tried too hard to be a fiery leader instead of focusing on his natural game. Off-field distractions didn't help. A night out drinking with club legend Jimmy Johnstone led to a loss of form, and eventually his place in the team. After Dundee were relegated, the writing was on the wall. Strachan needed a bigger stage. In 1977, Aberdeen paid £50,000 to bring him in. It was a move filled with promise, but also struggle. Injuries and inconsistency marred his early days. Then came the moment that would reshape everything. In 1978, Aberdeen appointed Alex Ferguson, a manager who demanded discipline, focus, and hunger. And for Strachan, it was the beginning of a transformation that would define the next decade of his life. Under Alex Ferguson, Strachan's career ignited. Ferguson's fierce standards brought out a new side of him, more disciplined, more tactical, more dangerous. No more coasting, no more excuses. In the 1979-80 season, Aberdeen did the unthinkable. They clawed back a 10-point deficit to beat Celtic to the Scottish League title. Strachan was central, not just a playmaker, but a locker room leader. His performances earned him the Scottish Football Writers' Player of the Year award. Then came the silverware rush. In 1982, Strachan scored and assisted in the Scottish Cup final. A year later, Aberdeen stunned Europe, beating Real Madrid 2-1 to win the Cup Winners' Cup. It wasn't just one of Aberdeen's greatest moments, it was one of Scottish football's greatest triumphs. They followed up with another Scottish Cup and the European Super Cup, defeating Hamburg. Again, Strachan delivered, providing the winning assist in the final. By now, he was no longer just a prospect. Under Ferguson, he'd become one of the most respected midfielders in Britain. Fierce, focused, and utterly reliable. But big clubs were circling. The partnership with Ferguson had peaked. In 1984, Manchester United came calling, and this time, Strachan said yes. When Manchester United signed Gordon Strachan in 1984 for £500,000, it looked like the start of something special. But it began with turbulence. Strachan had already signed a pre-contract with German side 1 FC Köln. United had to pay £75,000 in compensation to fix the mess. Still, he hit the ground running, 4 goals in his first 7 games, a 4th-place finish, and FA Cup glory. He was instrumental in the build-up to Norman Whiteside's winner against Everton at Wembley. The next season started strong. United won their first 10 league games, but injuries struck. Strachan and captain Brian Robson spent time sidelined, and United's title hopes collapsed. Then came the twist. Alex Ferguson returned, now as United's manager. Their reunion in 1986 stirred mixed feelings. Strachan joked, "I never thought he'd follow me this far south." But this wasn't Aberdeen. Ferguson wasn't convinced Strachan had the same edge now that he wasn't the team's star. The team's league positions mirrored the uncertainty: 11th, then 2nd, then back to 11th. Ferguson was rebuilding, and Strachan wasn't in his long-term plans. By 1989, Strachan knew his time at United was over. Sheffield Wednesday were interested. But in a dramatic turn, Leeds United matched the offer. It was a step down in division, but a gamble that would reshape his legacy. Strachan's move to Leeds United in 1989 raised eyebrows. Dropping to the 2nd division at 32? For many, it looked like the twilight of a career. But for Strachan, it was a rebirth. He became captain almost instantly, trusted, respected, and above all, driven. His partnership with Vinnie Jones helped drag Leeds back to the top flight by the end of the 1989-90 season. Fans loved him for his grit, leadership, and refusal to slow down. But promotion was just the beginning. Leeds built a powerhouse midfield: Strachan, Gary McAllister, David Batty, and a young Gary Speed. It was a perfect blend of bite and brilliance. In their first season back, they finished 4th and reached the League Cup semi-finals. Strachan, now in his mid-30s, was still outclassing much younger players. Then came the crowning moment. In 1991-92, Strachan led Leeds to the First Division title, beating his former club, Manchester United, in the process. He became the first player ever to win the Football Writers' Player of the Year award in both Scotland and England. Even as injuries took a toll, he remained influential, scoring a hat-trick against Blackburn and winning the club's Player of the Year award in the inaugural Premier League season. By 1994, his minutes faded, but his legacy at Leeds was sealed. He hadn't just revived his career, he'd captained a title-winning side and proved once again that he thrived when counted out. As his playing career wound down, Strachan stepped into coaching, joining Coventry City in 1995 as player assistant to Ron Atkinson. The plan was gradual, but football rarely follows scripts. By late 1996, Coventry were in crisis. The board acted fast. Strachan became player manager sooner than expected, with the club teetering on relegation. He responded with urgency. December brought a Manager of the Month award, but a brutal stretch followed. Just 1 win in 12 games. Relegation looked certain. Then came the turnaround. Wins against Liverpool, Chelsea and Spurs in the final weeks, against all odds, saved Coventry by a single point. At 40 years old, Strachan even played in the crunch match against Chelsea. It was a gritty, symbolic act of defiance. He then rebuilt. With smart signings like Magnus Hedman, George Boateng, and Youssef Chipo, Coventry finished 11th in 1997-98 and made the FA Cup quarter-finals. Strachan won another Manager of the Month award, but consistency faded. Despite bold moves like signing Robbie Keane, selling key players like Dion Dublin proved costly. Results dipped. The club was relegated in 2001, and after a poor start to the following season, Strachan was sacked. His first managerial chapter was over, but far from forgotten. Just weeks later, he got another shot. A Premier League club in chaos needed saving, and once again, Strachan was the man they called. In late 2001, Strachan took over a crumbling Southampton side. The club was struggling in their new stadium and staring at relegation. But once again, he brought order to chaos. By season's end, they were 11th. Then, against all expectations, Southampton finished 8th the next year and reached the FA Cup final, earning a UEFA Cup spot. Though they lost to Arsenal, Strachan's transformation of the squad was undeniable. But as quickly as it rose, it ended. After announcing plans to step down at season's end, news leaked early. The departure was fast-tracked. Just like that, he was gone. 16 months later, he returned to football, this time with Celtic in 2005. It began disastrously. A 5-0 Champions League loss to Artmedia Bratislava and a 4-4 league draw with Motherwell had fans questioning everything. But Strachan rebounded fast. He led Celtic to the League Cup and the SPL title in record time. He was named Manager of the Year. He revamped the squad, qualified for the Champions League last 16 twice, and won 3 straight league titles. His run put him among Celtic's elite managers. In 2009, after falling short in his 4th season, he stepped down. Then came a brief, forgettable spell at Middlesbrough in the Championship. Poor results followed, and Strachan walked away in 2010 without compensation. His club career had highs and lows, but one final challenge awaited. This time it was about national pride. In 2013, Gordon Strachan took on the ultimate challenge, managing Scotland's national team. It was a role filled with pressure, nostalgia, and expectation. He inherited a squad in transition, low morale, patchy results. But under his leadership, Scotland grew more organised and competitive. During the Euro 2016 qualifiers, there were glimmers of hope. Tight matches, tactical discipline, a belief that qualification was finally within reach. But it slipped away. He stayed on for the 2018 World Cup campaign. Once again, Scotland flirted with qualification, only to fall short after a 2-2 draw with Slovenia. The most talked about moment? A press conference, where Strachan claimed Scotland's failure might be down to genetics. It was vintage Strachan, off the cuff, provocative, and instantly divisive. In 2017, he stepped down, quietly, without fanfare. Just a man who had given everything to the badge, walking away after one final disappointment. Gordon Strachan's story is one of contradictions. A fiery playmaker, a title-winning captain, a manager who performed miracles and sparked controversy. For every triumph, there was tension. For every headline, a legacy. But whether you admired his genius or questioned his words, one thing's certain: Gordon Strachan never played it safe, and he was never, ever boring. If you enjoyed this story, hit like and subscribe. We've got more football legends, forgotten scandals, and surprising comebacks coming your way. Was Strachan misunderstood, or did he make too many of his own problems? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We read everyone. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.